The battle for figures after the October 1 bloodbath in the two English-speaking regions of the country. The government put the death toll at over a dozen, the SDF at over 30, Amnesty International at 17, and REDAC, a non-governmental organization that fight for the rights of Africans, at 32. In this edition of the news, we take you to the nation's capital, Yaoundé, where the Minister for Communication, Issa Chiroma Bakari, held a press conference. Equally, the Anglophone crisis has attracted widespread reactions from the international community, but how far can the UN, the Francophonie, the Commonwealth and other bodies go to maintain peace in these regions? Can they match their words to actions? I will be right back. Good evening, I am HANSON Chanji. You're watching the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television. We're broadcasting live from Douala, Cameroon, Equinox Central News Desk. I told you in the top stories, the battle for figures. After several figures advanced by the different bodies, the SDF, as far as the death toll of after the October 1 tension in the two English-speaking regions of the country, the SDF says it is about 30 persons who died. REDAC says 32. As far as government is concerned, it is over a dozen persons who died. The Minister for Communication, Issa Chiroma Bakari, presented the figures to pressmen in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, from where Roland Akon tells us more.
Government has put at over a dozen the death toll recorded following skirmishes between forces of law and order and the population in the northwest and southwest regions Sunday, October 1.
Le bilan fait état d'une dizaine de morts chez les assaillants, dont 5 décédés lors de la tentative d'évasion massive de la prison de Kumbo.
According to Issa Chiroma Bakari, the Minister of Communication, the heaviest death toll is from the Kumbo Central Prison, where he says 5 persons died as they attempted a jailbreak after a fire incident in the prison. In Ekiliwindi, Chiroma says 5 persons also died, with 2 gendarme officers wounded after an attack at the gendarmerie station.
Qu'à Ekiliwindi, arrondissement de Kumba 2, dans le département de la Mémé, 2 gendarmes ont été grièvement blessés, qu'un des 5 assaillants tués a trouvé la mort.
Armed men, Chiroma says, entered the town of Mamfi, but were chased away by gendarme officers in collaboration with the Nigerian army on duty around the area.
200 autres individus venant du Nigeria voisin tentaient de franchir la frontière de force à hauteur des Coques. Ils ont été refoulés par la gendarmerie nationale du côté camerounais, aidés par l'armée nigériane postée à cet endroit côté Nigeria.
Chiroma says many buildings were razed down. Security officers were wounded. Meanwhile, some administrative officials lost their vehicles to flames. The government's death toll has been challenged by political parties and some right groups. Amnesty International speaks of 17 deaths, while the SDF party speaks of 30 deaths and at least 100 persons arrested. Reports say relative calm has returned in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon as the people bury their loved ones.
Now, the international community has not been indifferent to the crisis rocking the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon, La Francophonie, the United Nations, and the Commonwealth, as well as Amnesty International and International Rights Group. They have all reacted, calling for dialogue between the government and the two communities of the two English-speaking regions of the country. In the following report, we ask how Amnesty International and other groups are going to maintain peace. Can the UN match words with actions, including La Francophonie and Commonwealth? The Anglophone crisis has attracted enormous reactions from the international community, a committee which seems to have been sleeping, according to those tagged today as secessionists. The United Nations, La Francophonie, the Commonwealth, Amnesty International have added their voices in one way or the other, while Amnesty International advocated for the release of all detained. Only reacted last September 28 in prelude to October 1, calling for restraint of violence between both parties. The UN called for dialogue between the government and the two communities of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. After the October 1 bloodbath, United Nations Secretary General Ruth urged the government to investigate acts of violence and urged political leaders to call their supporters to refrain from any further acts of violence. Mikael Zhang of La Francophonie in a statement condemned violence and said dialogue is the only solution to the crisis. She expressed readiness of the institution to negotiate with Cameroon. She also said children should be allowed to go back to school, condemning the ineffectiveness of school resumption. Patricia Scotland, Secretary General of Commonwealth, had on September 1 told reporters that her office is ready to be on the dialogue table. She said a mission from the Commonwealth is in Cameroon since June. In all, the international bodies have condemned violence and encouraged dialogue. But who will sit on the dialogue table on the part of the people of the two English-speaking regions of the country when the government had banned all groups representing Anglophones? And what would therefore be on the table if dialogue is finally opened? That is a question. A section of the new bridge will now talk something else. Over River Wuri in the economic capital, Douala has been opened for circulation to commuters. They expressed their joy and says it will go a long way to ease traffic congestion usually witnessed in that locality around Deido. And one of the first vehicles that landed on the new bridge was that of our reporter, Innocent Aze.
The second bridge over the Wuri River linking Bonaberi and Deido partially opened to enhance circulation. It stems from recurrent and prolonged traffic jam to and from Bonaberi littoral region, usually during rush hours, notably in the morning and evening period.
Everything will be okay, even for to Bonaberi that they are staying in Bonaberi, okay, in Dogoti, now everything will be okay. La ville de Douala, les gens ne sortaient pas, même les gens qui se débrouillent.
It will be entirely opened October 31st.
For now, what I'm seeing is that it's just that it will reduce the congestion of traffic, but it will not solve the problem for me. It will not solve the problem, really, because as you have seen, it's still tied up. Even though the new bridge is passing, but we have tied up here in Wrong Point. If you could have taken this bridge from Bonamusadi, crossing that way, it could have been better.
This quick measure taken by public works authorities, though works are still ongoing on the bridge within private car owners, transporters, motorcycle riders, including passengers who fume at heavy congestion that usually prevailed for several hours, causing them exhausted.
For the new bridge, we are happy to see a new structure in our country.
Sometimes I pay 500 francs, 800 for bâtiment on top bike for cross, but now I feel pay now 200, 150. So I'm happy for all those things that I'm seeing today.
Déjà je vois c'est déjà bon, c'est très bon, ça s'avance bien, les voitures passent déjà, c'est très bien.
Le pont est tellement grand, ouvert, scindé.
Meantime, the second bridge, whose construction will soon be effectuated, shall witness its official inauguration in December 2017.
The Financial Markets Commission is stepping up efforts to boost activities, and the number of companies listed. Investors have converged on Douala to be schooled on the advantages of listing their companies. This was on the occasion of the Global Investor Week. Our reporter Babila Jonathan was there for the 6 p.m. news.
Since 2001, when it was established, the stock exchange market in Cameroon still has very few companies on its list.
Right now we have 3 companies listed and about 6 bonds, state and other international organizations that have listed bonds.
A major stumbling block to investment is distrust.
There's a problem of confidence for all the parties. If you don't have confidence, you can't put your money in any business. And the one who is taking your money If he doesn't have any confidence in you, maybe he might not take.
Stakeholders are stepping up efforts to protect investors on the market. It is for this purpose that the Financial Markets Commission assembled investors and other stakeholders at the Cameroon Employers Association GICAM head office in Douala Monday to inform them about measures taken to secure their investments.
Let investors know that there are adequate protections in the market for those who decide to invest in transferable securities, those who decide to invest in the shares and bonds of companies that are listed on the stock exchange, or of government securities that are listed on the stock exchange. But there are many advantages.
Advantages that cannot be exploited by investors without transparency.
The two keys that can bring prosperity, and stock market is just about confidence, it's just about transparency.
Opening the books and having adequate governance systems in place has an advantage in terms of the long-term objectives of the company.
Meantime, experts say communication should be intensified to get more companies listed on the stock exchange market.
People should know exactly what stock exchange deals with. If communication is well done, then maybe Cameroonian would go more often than now in stock exchange.
We think that the communication strategy that we've put in place is bearing some fruit, and that in the coming months we should see a little more activity within the marketplace.
Within the context of the 2017 Global Investor Week, the Financial Markets Commission says it is breaking new grounds to boost activities on the marketplace.
My guest tonight is the Secretary General of the Financial Markets Commission. With him, we shall be looking at some of the problems faced by the Commission now. Members of the Secretariat of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative are in Cameroon to consult various stakeholders involved in the implementation of the initiative. It emerged from today's meeting that Cameroon, which is a compliant of the initiative, is on a good footing. Roland Akong took part in that meeting in Yaoundé and filed this report.
Cameroon is said to be on a good footing regarding the validation of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. The information is disclosed after a meeting in Yaoundé Tuesday between members of the EITI International Secretariat and the various Cameroonian stakeholders involved in the implementation of the initiative.
Cameroon is also on the good footing because most of the requirements have been met, and our reports, especially the 2014 report, is, we can say that, has less or little criticisms as per the reports of 2013 and those backward, because Cameroon now has been presenting or producing EITI conciliation reports on a regular basis.
Cameroon is hailed by the International Secretariat for going beyond the minimum requirements in the quality assurance process for all the 52 countries.
A tangible example of that in Cameroon is the extension of EITI reporting to the oil transport sector. This is not required by the EITI standard, but Cameroon has decided to do this because it is pertinent to Cameroon's local circumstances and challenges.
Secondly, we are talking petrol today, and each Cameroonian has the opportunity to explore the website of the committee and that of the SNH and other organizations to find out how much has come in through the extractive industries and can question whether these resources are being used well.
Cameroon adhered to the initiative in March 2005 and was declared compliant October 17, 2013.
Now, several homes have been inundated in Penja in the Mungo division after a downpour that hit that part of the division. We are told that Hausa quarters was worstly hit after the downpour. Our reporter Innocent Aze now presents the situation in the Hausa quarters.
Weather forecast of October 1, 2017 had announced heavy rainfall in the littoral region. On the 2nd of October, the prediction came true as heavy and prolonged rains severely hit most neighborhoods in the region, particularly in the town of Penja in the Mungo division. Inundation is predominant in this locality, with residents in the Hausa quarter greatly affected. This reporter is compelled to trample in the pool of water, unlike vehicles and other persons, to cross to the other side. Inhabitants caught in the web for about 4 years now do not relent efforts calling on competent government authorities to come to their aid and put an end to the inundation by creating drainage channels.
Make them build we bibi gutter. It go here we plenty.
If you put we rigol in make a fish water became pass.
Homes are entirely colonized by water, forcing some occupants to flee for fear of other catastrophes like electrocution.
Les enfants ne sont même pas là où vous voyez, ils sont là-bas chez les voisins parce que c'est grave.
Now we need today we know we cook water don't enter for kitchen.
The invading water does not leave valuable items and other properties undamaged.
3 years after the senior divisional officer for Wuri, now the governor of the Central Region, Paul Nasiribia, banned the circulation of buses commonly called cargo. They have resurfaced and showing their ugly heads on transport on streets in the economic capital Douala. Our reporter Innocent Aze visited the bus stop at Ndokoti in Douala Tiri municipality.
It was in 2014 that former senior divisional officer for the Wuri division, Nasiri Paudia, placed a ban on the continuous use of obsolete minibuses to transport persons in different areas in the division. Such old-fashioned buses were no longer allowed to circulate in the littoral region, and their stationary junctions like that in Dokoti deserted by transporters. Today, the place is busy like never before, simply because the unfashionable model of buses have disappeared and replaced with these modern mini transport buses, which render transportation of persons to various areas in Douala flexible, opposed to the banned uncomfortable models.
Homologué pour le transport. C'est pour cette raison qu'aujourd'hui vous allez voir presque toutes les voitures là en Nias.
Passengers have confirmed the flexibility and comfort of these new mini transport buses, whose tariff from Dokoti to Bonaberry remains low.
Ça nous soulage beaucoup et on est satisfait, on se sent à l'aise à l'intérieur.
Some transporters affirmed this, saying the move helped to boost their activities.
Eux-mêmes ils appellent ça que c'est du VIP actuellement. Eux-mêmes ils sont très contents.
Others say no change has been witnessed, revealing it is a way to eradicate idleness at home.
Ça ne donne pas. On fuit seulement à la maison.
Circulation of these old-fashioned buses is gradually disappearing in the Wuri division 3 years after the ban placement.
And life goes on. Innocent Aze, thanks for that report. That takes us to the second segment of this news. We shall be looking at the situation of the Financial Market Commission in Cameroon. And my guest tonight is Joseph BESONG, Dr. Joseph BESONG. He is the Secretary General of the Financial Market Commission. I will be right back. You're welcome to join me and my guest tonight. My guest is Dr. Joseph BESONG. He is the Secretary General of the Financial Market Commission. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, sir.
It's a pleasure having you. Now, what is the Financial Market Commission? Somebody hearing this for the first time.
Yes, the Financial Markets Commission is the regulator of Cameroon's financial markets. It regulates the Douala Stock Exchange, all the investment service providers, and all companies that are doing business within the financial markets.
But we understood in the report by Babila Jonathan that you have just 3 companies listed. What does that mean?
Yes, we have 3 companies listed on the Douala Stock Exchange. But, you know, the Douala Stock Exchange is the secondary market where you exchange securities that have already been issued in the primary market. And the primary market is where you have other issues and activities going on, which you may not necessarily see on the Douala Stock Exchange. So at the level of Douala Stock Exchange, you have 3 companies listed, but you have other companies that have rather issued bonds and are also listed. The government of Cameroon, of course, is not a company, but has listed its government bonds on the stock exchange. You also have institutions like the Development Bank of Central Africa that is listed on the exchange. You have government of Chad that is also listed on the exchange. You had about 2 years ago, you had the International Finance Corporation that also issued a bond that was listed on the stock exchange.
Now tell us, how do you work? Somebody hearing of the Financial Markets Commission, how do you really work your day-to-day activities?
Yes, our job is to make sure that before companies get into the marketplace, that we screen the information that gets into the public place, because the only thing that investors rely on is information when you have to invest in the securities of a company. So our job is to make sure that before companies receive the authorization to sell their securities in the market, that we have done a thorough screening of that information, so that what gets to the public is the right information, is adequate information, is sincere information.
Okay.
And then, of course, within the life of the company or on a day-to-day basis, we have to make sure that we control every bit of information that is in the marketplace concerning investment activities that have to do with securities. So we have to control, we have to make sure that every actor that has been licensed to be in the marketplace is doing what they are supposed to be doing as per the regulations in force.
But is that the case in Cameroon today?
Yes, that's the case in Cameroon today. That work is being done on a day-to-day basis.
Are companies not escaping the vigilance?
Companies are not escaping the vigilance because we only deal with companies that are already in the marketplace. Now, our job is to try to get companies that are not in the marketplace to come to the marketplace, which is why we are out there trying to give the advantages, informing companies what is available and why they should be in the financial markets, and why they should raise capital from the financial markets, why they should be on the stock exchange. So that is basically what we are trying to do through all these conferences and seminars that we have. But at the same time, we want to assure investors that their monies are well protected once they are involved in the capital markets, because we do surveillance on a day-to-day basis, and we make sure that crooks are not found in the marketplace.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is, since we are vigilant, if we discover that there is somebody in the marketplace whose business is not clear, then we try to get them very quickly out of the marketplace so that investors don't get to lose their money. Remember, even recently, we have published communiques involving some people who went around collecting monies from investors to invest in foreign exchange markets. And we know the risk involved in investing in such products. And investors don't understand these products. They don't understand the risk behind these products. So we have to come out forcefully to make sure that we rid the marketplace of such persons, people with these kinds of behaviors and attitudes in the market.
Okay. So what was special about this week's conference?
Yes, we are celebrating World Investor Week. This is the first edition, and it's being celebrated in over 100 countries across the world. World Investor Week is a time for us to reflect with investors. I mean, to let investors understand the importance that they have in the marketplace, and for regulators to let investors understand that we understand the worries that they have when they decide to come to the marketplace to invest. And therefore, we are telling and assuring them that we are there at the time that information comes to the market. We control the information all through the life cycle of the product, and we control all the actors within the market, and therefore, people can actually rest and sleep well after they had invested in the financial markets. It's not like giving your money to somebody in the quarters, or giving your money to a company that you don't know how the company is performing. In the markets, we make sure that every information is transparent. We make sure that companies that are performing well are those that actually come to the market. Companies that are transparent, have open books, companies that have prospects of growth, companies that have a project to expand, companies that are willing to share information, to share profits, to share everything about their values with new investors that might come in.
So before we leave now, what's the role of the journalists? Because I know many journalists were equally invited to take part.
Yes, we invited journalists, especially those who are involved in the economic and financial press, on the second day, which was today. We had to train journalists to understand the information that they would now pass across to the public. It is very important for us because we cannot touch everybody. But journalists, they have their TV stations, they have their newspapers, they have their radios, and so they have a wider public. And so we think that if we give them adequate information, they can then take this information and circulate this information to all, to everyone, to the public, to the Cameroonian public in general, so that they understand what we are doing. They understand the importance of capital markets. They understand why companies should come to the market to raise money. They understand the advantages that government has put in place. Tax incentives. You know, you live from a tax rate of about 30%, and when you list your company for the first 3 years, you pay only 20% in terms of corporate tax. So all these advantages, journalists need to take them out and let those who have companies understand that the advantages to be in the market, but also investors to understand that they are adequately protected if they come to the marketplace.
All right, it was a pleasure being with you, Dr. Joseph BESONG. You are the Secretary General of the Financial Markets Commission.
Thank you, sir.
It was equally a pleasure being with you in this day's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television. Thanks for watching. The team joins me to say good night.